Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I've got a very long video which is designed for beginners as well as advanced, just to show you how to do a full set of acrylics the correct way. So the first thing that I did was push back all the cuticles to expose the new growth of the nail. And then now I'm going in with my straight edge nail clippers and I'm trimming those nails to make them look nice and neat in case the client wants to come back later on for a soak off. Now I'm showing you the difference between a 180 sanding band and 100, and it might be even coarser than that, but you always want to make sure that you'll use the smoother one. So 180 is perfect to remove the shine from the natural nail. And when you start using it, you want to apply a slight pressure onto that natural nail, removing all of the shine that is on that nail. The shine that you get on the nail is basically from the oils that our bodies produce. So imagine if you try to add acrylic on top of that or any adhesive, it will not stick. It's basically just putting oil on water. They basically just separate and they don't go together. So before applying any types of enhancement, whether if it's gel or acrylic or even acrygel, always remove the shine from the natural nail. And how I do it is I do it on a number 3 on my Cyan K35 nail drill. And I use, again, a number 3, very, very low speed. And then I also focus using the belly of the sanding band to do the middle of the nail. So the full body of the nail plate. And then I use the edge of that nail drill to work on the cuticle area as well as the sides of the nail. And you want to make sure you focus very good on those areas because you are more likely to get lifting on those areas. So I've dusted off the nails and now I'm spraying with my CJP prep spray, and that's basically just a hand sanitizer as well as a nail dehydrator, which will ensure you have zero shine on that nail. So I highly recommend it because it's a 2-in-1 product. And then I just use my nail brush to remove any excess dust. Now I'm using my nail tips, which are the Salon Pro nail tips from Glitterplanet, and I'm using my creation glue that I got from eBay, and I'm just applying a small drop of that glue on the tip and then applying it on that nail. So you want to make sure when you apply nail tips that the sidewalls of the nail tip fit exactly to the sidewalls of the natural nail. If you have one tip small and one tip big, always go for the bigger one and trim the sides. I will be showing you this on the ring finger, as the first tip that I picked was a little bit smaller. So how you know the tip is small is by having the nail pop out a little bit. So if you would apply that onto the nail, it will basically just pop out eventually and it will cause your nails to lift. So now I'm showing you that I'm trimming off the sidewalls of that nail tip and then making it fit that nail plate exactly, or that those sidewalls of the nails exactly, and then applying my glue, this time applying it on the actual nail tip, and that way it basically just helps that nail glue not to run towards that nail tip, because I've done this before, you guys, where I have applied a little bit too much glue and it runs all over the nail tip and the nail tip gets stuck to my finger. Let me know if that happened to you. But if it did, just do what I'm doing right now. Apply that glue, just a small drop of glue on the middle of the nail at the tip, and then just place that nail tip. And when you place the nail tip, make sure you hold it for a couple of seconds. This nail glue is really, really good. It dries really quickly, and I've not had any problems with it. But you also want to make sure that you keep hold of that nail tip to make sure it's in the right place. And you also want to make sure you hold the finger nice and straight, as well as the tip. Hold it nice and straight to make sure that the tip goes on nice and straight. So to get the nails to the right length, you can either use a tip cutter or stork scissors. So the tip cutter I got from CJP and the stork scissors are from Glitterplanet. So you can use whatever you have, but I always prefer using a tip cutter. And when you use a tip cutter, make sure you have the blade always facing you, so the blade is towards you. And then just obviously trim the nails to the desired length. So now I'm going back in with my straight edge nail clippers and I'm just trimming the sidewalls of the nail to get the shape that I want. So for the pinky, I am doing a little bit more of a narrow nail. So when you hold your nail clippers, you want to hold them at an angle so that the line goes at an angle. So if you want it like coffin, you don't make it as thin as I did it on the pinky. So for the ring finger, it's going to be a coffin. And for the middle finger, I basically just tried to keep it as straight as I can and only trimmed a little bit off because I wanted to do a tapered square. Again, holding those nail clippers quite straight, not at an angle. And then for the index, I am holding it at an angle and I'm going to cut it as I would to a coffin nail, and that way I would get a almond shape. So once you have your initial shape, you want to come in and file your nails, and I use the 180 nail file. And what you want to do is you want to keep your file moving like that. You don't want to keep swiping your hand file the way I'm doing it right now. That way it will take you a lot of time for you to get the shape you want, and also you will not get it as crisp. So you want to make sure that you keep that file moving in one direction, not one direction, in both directions, sorry, like up and down. And you want to keep it nice and flush to those sidewalls of the nail. And for the stiletto shape, I'm basically just doing the same amount of filing on both sidewalls, doing a 45-degree angle on both sidewalls. For the coffin nail, I'm doing exactly the same, so 45-degree angle on the sidewalls of the nail, but rather than doing it too much as the way I did it with the stiletto, I just do a little bit of filing on both sidewalls. Again, same amount of filing on both sidewalls, and then just straightening up that free edge, so the tip of the nail. So you want to straighten it like that, or you can use it on the other direction, so doing it this way. I prefer doing it this way because I find that you get a more straighter tip. And don't worry too much about the tip right now, just because you can come back and straighten up that tip once you flip your client's hands towards their view, and then you can see if that nail tip is nice and straight. But anyway, for the tapered square, I'm not doing a lot of filing. I'm trying to hold my file about a 90-degree angle on the sidewalls of the nail, and then just getting that nice and straight. Again, I don't do a lot of filing in here because you don't really need to. So I just go back and do the tip, and then again, like I said, you don't have to worry about the tip just yet. And then for the index, I am basically just doing the same as what I did with the stiletto, but rather than having a pointy tip, I'm going to round it off using my hand file. So this is what I mean when I say flip your hands towards their view, and then just have a look at the nail tip, and then if you see that it's crooked, just use your hand file to straighten up that line or that tip. And then for the stiletto and the almond, if the point is not central, again, just use your file to make that point central. So once you have your nails nice and prepped, spray your CJP prep spray or whatever prep spray you have. Give them a nice brush with your nail brush, and then you can come in to add your primer. So the primer that I'm using is the CJP Acid Primer, and for the first color I'll be using CJP Cherry Blossom Blush, and for my monomer I'm using the CJP The One Monomer. And now I'm just showing you how I pick up my beads. So if you don't wipe your brush and you just keep your brush soaking wet and you just put that on your powder, you're going to get a very wet bead. As you can see, there's a lot of monomer coming out there. But then if you wipe your brush a little bit too much, as I'm doing right now, and you dip that into your powder, you're going to get quite a dry bead. And as soon as you lay that on your paper towel or your nail, it's going to separate and it's going to be very hard for you to manipulate. So the right way for picking out your bead is basically just dipping your brush, wiping one side, flipping it, wiping the other side, and then just putting it in your powder, count till 3, get it out, and that's the perfect consistency. So now I'm just applying a small amount of primer on all of the nails, just focusing on the natural nail. Make sure you don't touch any cuticle or skin, because if you do, it will burn the clients if they have any cuts. After you've applied your primer, you want to go in with your application. As you can see, I dipped my brush in the monomer, wiped both sides, and then picked up my bead. And the first one is going between, so right in the middle where the natural nail and the tip meet. I'm just patting that down, making sure it's there in the right place, making sure it doesn't run towards the sides. And once I'm happy with the application, I just brush it down towards the tip. And then after that, the next bead that I place is right underneath the first bead that I did. And then again, placing it right where you want it. Make sure it doesn't run on the sides, and then just brush it down very gently, brushing the sidewalls of your nail because you don't want to disturb your shape. So whenever you brush your acrylic towards the tip, you want to make sure you're very gentle with it, because if you brush it too hard, it will basically just, waste product and you won't get the right amount of bulk wherever you want it. But anyway, for the third bead, I am doing the same method, picking up my bead, and then I hold for a couple of seconds. And I know I am showing you, but normally I would hold my bead just a little bit to make sure the powder soaks all the liquid, and also it gives the bead a good consistency. But anyway, the third bead will go above the first ever bead, again patting it into place and then brushing it gently towards the tip. And you also want to make sure that when you do this, again, you keep wiping the sides of the nail. And if you have any product on the skin, you want to make sure you wipe it off straight away, because if you don't, you will get lifting. So for the third bead, I am basically applying it closer to that cuticle area. You want to go as close as possible, and then use the tip of your brush to make sure that acrylic is nice and flush to that cuticle area, again not touching it. And this brush is again very perfect. I know I've mentioned this on a lot of my videos, but I'm using my number 10 magic stick from Glitterplanet, and I think it works perfectly, especially for beginners. So for beginners, you can use a number 10, and if you're not comfortable with this number, just use number 8, which I really recommend as well. So once you have all your 4 beads, you want to look at your nail from the side, and that way you'll be able to see if you have an apex or not. So I'm looking at my nail right now, and I see that I have a little bit of that apex, but not as much as I want it. So I pick a bead again and I place it closer to that cuticle area, pat it onto that nail, and then when I come to brush, I basically only just brush the lower part of that bead, because I want most of the bulk to be at the top. As you can see, I'm just patting it and pressing that onto the nail, not too hard. And then as I go closer to the lower half of that bead, I just use the tip of my brush and slightly brush it towards the tip. Another good tip I'd like to give you guys is whenever you pick up a bead and then lay it on the nail, you want to hold your brush for a couple of seconds to let that bead, or to let that powder soak that monomer, and that way you get a very good consistency. And now I'm just showing you how my apex looks. So if you put your brush against that nail, you'll see like kind of a triangle towards the tip, which basically indicates you've got a good tip. So this is also what I meant with holding your brush for a couple of seconds. I know I'm showing you for the sake of the video, but I also do this on like normal times. So you want to hold that and then place it onto the nail. So now I'm using my clear acrylic and I'm just again placing it in the middle of the nail, so where the natural nail and the tip meet, brushing it towards that tip very, very gently, neaten up the sides of the nail, and then now going in with my second bead, and then I am going to place it below the first bead. And I want you to notice that as soon as I lay that acrylic onto the nail, I wipe my brush and then go and brush that product towards the tip. So every single time you want to brush anything on that nail, you want to wipe your brush against your paper towel. You want to wipe it onto your paper towel to make sure there's no any excess acrylic on that brush, because you guys, brushes when it comes to acrylic nails supposed to be your best friend. So having a very good brush is very essential to have good nails. So make sure you invest in a very good brush, because I've tried using cheaper brushes and trust me you guys, it does not work. But anyway, now for the third bead, again, I'm placing it above the first bead, and then I'm going to wipe my brush, and then I'm just going to brush that bead towards the tip. And then obviously I'm going to be applying my fourth bead, which is closer to that cuticle area. So I'll let you guys watch so you guys see what I'm doing rather than me just rambling. But I do hope you guys understand what I'm saying. I know it's a little bit harder sometimes to explain things, but I hope just by showing you, you get some benefits. Now for the pinky, I'm doing my protective layer. So if you want to do glitter or colored acrylic, you always want to do this step first. So just grab a small bead and then just place it closer to that cuticle area to cover your natural nail, and then just brush it down towards the tip. And this basically just helps when the client comes back for a redesign, so that you can file that colored acrylic or glitter back to this layer. That way they don't have to get a soak off and you can just change the color. So for the color, I will be using pastel red from CJP, and it's a design powder which has a cap. Basically means you have to encapsulate after applying that color. So one thing I want to mention is when you apply colors, especially that needs to be encapsulated, you do not want to add acrylic to build bulk. You just want to add as much as you want or as much as you need to add good coverage onto that nail. So for this, I'm basically just applying it closer to the tip, second one above the first bead, and then the third one closer to that cuticle area. No more than that. And if you need to add a little bit more, just add it where you find patches of colors or you just need a little bit more coverage. So as you can see, when I apply my bead, I always wipe my brush again, because especially with colored acrylic, you want to keep wiping your brush on your paper towel, because if you don't, you're going to mess up your monomer, and then if you choose another lighter color, it will mix and it will just create a mess. So you want to keep on wiping that brush on your paper towel to make sure you don't ruin your brush, and also you don't ruin the colors that you apply on the nail. So as you can see, I've added my third bead, and now I'm basically happy with it. But I looked at the side of the nail and I feel like I was missing a little bit of product, so I pick up the smallest bead ever, and then I just apply it wherever I need it to get that perfect coverage. And then I will be showing you from the side what the nails look like, and they're quite flat. And don't worry about that, that's okay, because that's just your colored acrylic. You have to come back to encapsulate it. And the reason why you have to encapsulate colored acrylic is because if you don't, it will get patchy when you come back to file it. So now for the index, I'm going to be doing this for I would say like advanced. So yeah, if you have enough practice, I would recommend you do this method now. So I do my 2-ball method, which basically I pick up quite a large bead, I drain my bead, and then I place it onto that nail, and rather than brushing that acrylic towards the tip, I pat that acrylic and basically just manipulate it and move it around using the patting motions and pressing that product onto the nail. So that was my first bead. Once it's laid, I then focus on getting the shape right, making sure that I wipe any product that is onto the nail, wipe my brush, dip it back onto the monomer, pick up my second bead, which is also quite a medium bead, drain it, and then I put it closer to that cuticle area. Again, I keep the bulk closer to that cuticle area, not like really close to it. You want the bulk to be quite, in the middle of the nail, and then once you reach the lower half of that bead, you want to brush it down towards the tip. So for the pinky, I'm going to be doing my 4-ball method. So you have to encapsulate this. If it's colored acrylic like the way I have it right now, or glitter, you have to do this step. So the first bead again goes right in the middle of the nail, brushing it lightly towards the tip. Second one goes underneath the first bead, and then the third one goes above the first bead, and then the last one, which is the 4th one, which will go closer to that cuticle area. So once you've laid all your acrylic, you want to come back in with your hand file and just reshape all of the nails. Please, please, please don't skip this step. I know it's like an extra step, but it does make everything look better, because I feel like acrylic, with acrylic nails, shape is everything. So sometimes even if like the structure is not right, I know a lot of nail techs will hate me for this, but let's just be realistic, especially when you're just training and you don't have the structure the way you want it. I would really recommend you focus on the shape, and then obviously with practice you will get your structure right. But then again, the shape is everything, so it's very essential to get the right shape. So again, flip your client's hand towards their view, and then just make sure you perfect that shape. So now I'm going in with my smooth top fine drill bit from Glitterplanet, and I'm just going to file all the nails. This is also one of the most important steps in doing acrylic nails, because you want to make sure you get a smooth surface as well as seal that acrylic onto the nail. So basically, when I use this bit, I just focus on smoothing out the surface of the nail, because it's a safety bit. I cannot really go close to that cuticle area, but for beginners, I highly recommend this, because it's less likely for you to cut your client, as it's like smoothened out towards the top, so it's less likely for you to catch your client's cuticle. And then also it's a ceramic, so it's a ceramic drill bit, so that means heat generation is not as bad as your average normal nail drills. But anyway, like I said before, you want to make sure you get the surface nice and smooth. Make sure you keep moving your drill back and forth. You don't want to keep it stopping in one spot because otherwise it will start burning the client. And for this speed, I use a number 10 on my drill, and I am not really I'm not scared of using like a high speed. You can use a little bit higher than that if you feel a little bit more confident, just because you're not going to cut your client because it's a smooth top. But I would recommend for beginners to stick with the number 10, and then basically again just focus on the surface of the nail, going back and forth and then going underneath the nail in case you have a little bit of acrylic under that nail. And also go on the sides of the nails, so the sidewalls of the nails. And as you can see, with this nail, I am going to go underneath the nail tip, and then you're going to see that some bits like stick out, and if I didn't put my drill bit underneath, I would have not took that out. So I highly recommend you do this. So you put your drill bit underneath the nail to make sure you get a smooth surface on the sidewalls as well. But anyway, after that comes the most important bit as well about filing your nails, which is basically just using a a fine drill bit. So I'm using a fine carbide drill bit that I got from Amazon, and this one is not a safety bit. So whenever I use this bit, I use it at a lower speed. So I use a number 3 or 4 on my drill, so the same speed I use for my sanding band, and I basically just go as close as I can to that cuticle area to seal that acrylic onto the nail. So when I say seal the acrylic, is basically just thinning out the acrylic that is very close to that skin, to make sure that there's no gaps between the acrylic and the natural nail, because if you leave any gaps between the acrylic and the natural nail, you are more likely to get lifting. And obviously if the client gets lifting and doesn't come back for you to fix the lifting, they would get a greenie, which is like a nail fungus, and you do not want that. So make sure you don't skip this bit. So now I'm using a nail buffer, and I'm buffing all of the nails to make sure I get a smooth surface and to get rid of any scratches that came from my hand file or my e-file. And you want to do this and then also use your thumb to feel on that nail to make sure it's nice and smooth. And then after that, you want to wipe with an alcohol wipe and come in with your top coat or your polish or whatever. And whenever you apply your polish, you want to wipe the sides of the nail using the tips of your finger. That way you don't get that extra bits of like gel curing on the light, and then that way it will change the shape of your nail. So you just want to make sure you very lightly touch the sidewalls of the nails, slide your finger, and then just make sure that nail tip is nice and straight, or just not disturbed. But anyway, after this, you just want to cure for 60 seconds on your UV lamp if you're using gel polish, and that's basically it. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you reached this part of the video, thank you so much for watching the whole thing. Let me know if you find this helpful, and if you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video.